Sahanau avatu Sahanau bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahai Tejasvinau adhitamastu ma vidvishavahai Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Ragadirogan satatanushaktan asheshakaya prasrutan asheshan autsukyamoharatidan jakhana Yo purva vaidyaya namostu tasmai. Namaste. We are getting into the 7th session of our video classes, which is the 6th chapter of Ashtanga Hridaya Sutrasthana. The name of the chapter is Anna Swarupa Vijnaniyam. Anna Swarupa Vijnanam. Anna in Sanskrit means food. Swarupa means own form or nature. Vijnana, as you already know, means knowledge. So Anna Swarupa Vijnana means knowledge of nature of the food substances. And Vijnaniyam means something which is beneficial. So the chapter is beneficial. The study of this chapter is going to be beneficial to understand the nature, the Swarupa of Anna. So when we dealt the last chapter, Dravadravya Vijnaniyam, we have already seen that the substances, the dravyas, what we use grossly in day-to-day life is classified into two. The liquid substances, Dravadravya, which you have already studied, and now we are mainly focusing on the solid substances, and that too what we use daily as food substances in this chapter. And as a translation or as a heading, I have given an intro, listen to the voice of seers. Because one of the most important information what we gather from ancient scriptures is about or is Dravya Jnanam. Dravya Jnana means the knowledge about substances. Charaka says there is only two things to study. One is Dravya Jnanam, the second thing is Yukti Jnanam. Dravya Jnana speaks about, or this is the knowledge about the nature or the swabhava or the swarupa of the substances. And Yukti is nothing but the logic by which you understand how this substance which has these properties is going to be either good or bad in different conditions. So, among these two main topics of Dravya Jnana and Yukti Jnana, of course, Charaka says, Tishtat Yupari Yuktijno Dravya Jnana Vadam Sada. The knowledge or the knower of logic is more superior to people who are Dravya, who knows the nature of substances. But still, to use the logic, the fundamental thing what you should know is the nature of the substances. So, the logic you are going to apply on the Dravya Jnana. So, one of the most important thing what you study in Ayurveda is about these substances. And it's a great privilege to listen to the understanding of ancient seers, the rishis, the Maharishis, about what was their thinking about these substances. How did they analyzed or understood these substances? Because if you read three different modern systems about any substance, let it be food, nutrition, you will get three different opinions. You see that different ages or different eras of the modern science gave us different pictures about the same matter. So it's a question then, what to accept? So there is a confusion about the understanding about the nature of substance itself. There are debates whether this oil is good or the other oil, or whether this oil is going to be healthy or unhealthy. These are again and again debated points, but the textbooks or the commentators says that the rishis had Ashesha Vishesha Jnana. This is the terminology that they use. Ashesha Vishesha Jnana. Ashesha means complete, Vishesha means specific, Jnana means knowledge. The complete specific knowledge about the properties or the actions of the substances. So, for us, the study of Annaswarupa Vijnaniyam is an opportunity to listen about the Ashesha Jnana, the complete knowledge about the Visheshas, the details or the specificities of different substances. That is why I have named this chapter as listening to the voice of ancient seers, because this is not just the opinion of Vagbhada, as he already says. He is trying to compile the informations which has been already told by Atreya, Adayo, Maharshaya, Atreya, etc., great seers. So let us see how did they try to understand the huge or the gross numbers of substances what we use daily, especially for food. When we look at the content of the whole chapter, you can see that they have classified the whole substances, the solid substances, the food substances, into basically 6 groups. They are Dhanya Varga, which are grains. Second is Krita Anna Varga, which are food preparations. Third one is Mamsa Varga, which is meat preparations, or meat, it's not preparations, it's about different kinds of meats. The fourth one is Shaka Varga, which are the groups of vegetables. So they list a lot of vegetables in this section. And the next group is Bhala Varga, where they list fruits, different types of fruits. And the last varga is Aushadha varga, which is groups of spices and condiments or the medicines. So, as we have already discussed in the last chapter, what is explained first is the most important thing and also the most used, Bahu Upayogitvat. If you remember, it was water which was explained in Dravadravya Vijnaniyam in the beginning, whereas here the text starts by Dhanya Varga, which is grains. That itself shows that when you think about food substances, the main portion or the main proportion of our food should be comprised of grains or grain products. So that is why he has put dhanya or grains at first. And if you look at any cultures in the world, any old cultures, unfortunately now there is a new culture evolving across the globe, which is a modern culture or a kind of metro culture. I'm not speaking about that culture, but if you look at any old traditions or cultures in the world, let it be Western, let it be African, let it be Asian, let it be American, whatever may be the culture, you can see the main portion of their food was something which was made from grains. It could be bread, it could be different noodles, or it could be just cooked grains itself. It could be anything which is a derivative of grains. So this is and this was and this should be the main proportion of our food. And next he explains Kridana Varga, where he explains how different ingredients can be put together, and also especially he is explaining the products which can be prepared from the grains itself. But at the same time, you can see in this group he also lists rasala, which is sometimes compared to lassi, but it is not lassi, which is something which is prepared out of yogurt. So even you can see rasala, which is a drink. You can also see paniya, which is also another drink. So even some liquid preparations, also you see him being dealt in this group, where you see it as Krita Annavarga. And very interestingly, even before Shaka Varga, the group of vegetables, Vagbhada puts Mamsa Varga, the group of different types of meats. And even he further subclassifies, which we will see later, the meat into different groups, and explains a lot, more than 100 species of meats in this chapter. And next comes the Shaka Varga, where he further classifies it into fruit vegetables and leaf vegetables and further subclassifications. And then comes fruits, and the last, which is Aushadha Varga, where he explains the substances like spices, which can also be used as medicines. So it is maybe interesting to know that most of the spices, including pepper, ginger, garlic, or hing, asafoetida, all these things what is explained in Aushadha Varga is also used medicinally. So now it's maybe a good question to ask then, what is the difference between food and medicine? And even there are theories which says food itself is the medicine and medicine is also food. But there is a reference which demarks that Rasapradhanam Aharam and Viryapradhanam Aushadham. Rasapradhanam Aharam. Rasa means taste. Pradhana means important, is ahara. So food is something which is prepared with giving importance to taste. So when you prepare food, you are concerned about the taste of the end product. It should be palatable, it should be tasty, It should generate interest for the person to eat it. Whereas that is not the concern of the person or of us when we prepare medicine. And the concern is virya. Virya pradhanam aushadham. When we prepare medicine, maybe we are even using some of the substances which is used as food, but the most concern goes towards the potency, the medicinal potency of the end formulation. So when we prepare a medicine, we are trying to create a specific potency which is able to do certain specific pharmacological actions in a patient's body. That is the concern of a person or a scientist or a physician when he formulates a medicine. Whereas when a cook or a mother or a housewife cooks food, her concern is to make the food palatable and tasty. So when we again come back to our point of Aushadha Varga, the group of spices, you can see most of them are Virya Pradhanam already. Most of the substances like pepper, hing, ginger, etc. are very potent. That is why it is put at the end, so that when you prepare, you should not add plenty of them, even salt. Salt is also included under this Varga, where you have to be careful. So this should be the least. This should be the least used substances when we prepare the food. But it is also important. There is some specific reasons why you have to add spices, which we will see when we study this group. So the most used group, which is Dhanya Varga, which is the group of grains, and the least or used with care is the Aushadha Varga, which is the group of spices or medicinal substances. And from the topic of Dhanya Varga, the whole Dhanya Varga, the whole group of grains are subclassified into two, which is Shuka Dhanya Varga and Shimbi Dhanya Varga. Shuka Dhanya Vargas are groups of cereals, whereas Shimbi Dhanya Varga are substances which are pulses or legumes. I repeat, the whole Dhanya Varga is subclassified into two, Shuka Dhanya and Shimbi Dhanya. And Shuka Dhanya, Shuka literally means the beak of a bird. So Shuka are grains which are covered by husk, which appears like that of the beak of a bird. This is what is Shuka and Shuka Dhanya means, which we scientifically call as cereals. And Shimbi Dhanya are usually legumes. It usually falls into Leguminaceae family botanically, and they have a specific kind of fruits known as pods, which has kind of beans or legumes inside. So these kinds of grains are known as Shimbi Dhanya, which we see in the next slide later. So now we are focusing into Shuka Dhanya, which are cereals, which the text subclassifies into 5. You can see that there are Shali, which is rice, which is a specific kind of rice. Again Vrihi, which is again another type of rice. Trinadhanya, which Trina literally means grass, and Trinadhanya means grains of grass, which are known as scientifically millet. And Yava, I have just named it as barley. And Godhuma, which is wheat. So Vagbhada or Ashtanga Hridaya has subclassified the whole cereals into 5 groups: the group of Shali rices, the group of Vrihi rices, the group of millets, group of barleys, and group of wheats. This is how Vagbhada has subclassified them. And if you see, naturally you see that rice is given so much of importance, and there are 2 groups of rice being explained. Even when it comes to Charaka Samhita, or some commentators say even it is 3 groups. There is, we will try to look at that later. But here you see that Vagbhata directly mentioned 2 groups of Shuka, which is known as Shali and Vrihi. And you can see, if you go and read Ashtanga Hridaya, that Rakto Mahansa Kalamat Turnaga Shaguna Hrida Sara Mukho Dirkhashuga Lodhrasuga Sugandhiga, etc. He keeps narrating a lot varieties of Shali rices, and also a lot of different kinds of Vrihi rices in this group. And when it comes to the group of millet, he has only explained 4. When it comes to barley, he has only explained 3. When he comes to wheat, he has only explained 2. Right? So the first group of specific substances explained is rice, and a lot of explanations, a lot of detailed explanations, a lot of varieties being narrated also in this context. So this naturally puts a lot of questions in front of us. If you look at the current data about food, it is still true that around 60% of human population is mainly depending upon rice even today for the main proportion of food. And according to the most latest available data, there are 40,000 varieties of rices across the globe which is cultivated and used for different preparations and different reasons, for different climatic agricultural criterias. And of course, even though some parts of the world is not able to cultivate rice, but even then now you can see the usage of rice is still increasing, and a lot of researches are happening in the field of developing new varieties of rices as well. So with these interesting observations, let us again look into the details of what is the difference between these 2 main group, what Vagbhata makes between Shali and Vrihi. So what is the difference between Shali and Vrihi? When you search for the answer of this question, you don't find an answer in Ashtanga Sangraha or in Ashtanga Hridaya at all. But you find an interesting answer in Chakrapanidatta Vyaghyana, the commentary of Chakrapanidatta for Charaka Samhita Sutrasthana 27th chapter for the 8th to 12th verses, where Chakrapanidatta comments, the most authentic commentator comments on these verses. He answers the question, what is the difference between Shali and Vrihi there? Let us look at the Sanskrit reference of his commentary. He says, Atracha Shali Haimandigam Dhanyam. Atracha Shali Haimandigam Dhanyam. Shashtikadaya cha Graishmika. Vrihayascha Vrihaya Sharada iti Vyavastha. So, Atra, among this or among the rice, Shali means Shali, is Haimandigam Dhanyam. Shali are those harvested in Hemanta. So Haimantikam Dhanyam Shali. Haimanta or Hemanta is a word which already should be familiar to you because you have seen Rutucharya. Hemanta is a Rutu, a season, which is the early winter. So Haimantikam Dhanyam, the grain, the rice, which is harvested in Hemanta, in the early winter, is what is known as Shali. Whereas Shashtikadaya, Shashtika, etc. are harvested in Sharada. Sharada iti. Sorry, is Graishmika. Shashtika, etc. rices are harvested in the Grishma. Grishma means the summer. Whereas Vrihaya, Sharada iti Vyavastha. And Vrihis are harvested in autumn. So this is the most authentic and most reliable and logical explanation what we get for the question, what is the difference between Shali and Vrihi. I repeat, Shalis are those rices which are harvested in the season of early winter, Hemanta. Whereas Vrihis are those which are harvested in Sharat, which is autumn. And Chakrabani makes another subgroup which is Shashtika Adaya, which we will see what it is. It is coming under actually the Vrihi itself, but it is harvested earlier in summer. So according to the season in which the grain has matured, they have classified rice into 2 groups or 3 groups. This is again very interesting. This gives us the insight to understand even other substances where this subclassification is not done. This means when the rice is harvested in Hemanta, the properties are going to be different from when it is harvested. It can be even the same species which is harvested in Sharat. It is the difference in the season. This is how the season is. You have seen that definition when we studied Rutucharya. Rasa, Guna, Virya, Dosha, Deha Bala Vyapat Sampadam cha Karanatvam Pratyedam Pradipadyante. Rutu, the season, is the cause of the strength or weakness or richness or poverty or poorness of the rasa, guna, virya, dosha, dehabala, etc. of the dravyas and also the body of any animals or of any beings. So the rasa which is expressed in the rice in Sharat and the guna which is expressed in the rice in Sharat and the virya which is expressed in the rice in Sharat is different to that of what will be expressed in winter. This is not only applicable for rice but also applicable for any food substance. Rice being an annual, even it is not just an annual, the maximum time the rice takes to grain or to harvest is 6 months. So in Kerala there is a tradition of even harvesting twice or thrice a year. You harvest and again prepare the field, again sow the seeds, again harvest. So there were times where in the same field in a year there were 3 harvests, because usually the grains used here takes 3 months. So within 9 months you can finish 3 harvests, and maybe the other 3 months to 1 month in between to prepare the land for further sowing and fertilizing the land. So this is why the grain produced in the same field in this different season is going to have different properties. And of course, you can see that different seeds were also preferred for different seasons. This is why he is explaining different varieties under Shali and different varieties under Vihi. So if you go and read about rice culture, it is told rice is a grain which has a history of at least 8,000 years. It is one of the oldest grains used. And it is very interesting, even before any science in the world, the method, because the way in which you agriculture rice is very complex, is very, very complex. You need a lot of water management to produce rice. So it is interesting that the mankind has studied and understood the seasonal variations, how to prepare landscape and how to harvest and how to produce, how to agriculture rice so many thousands years ago. And they have developed specific varieties, specific species, varieties which suits to specific lands, specific seasons, specific climatic conditions, and also for more yield. Now there are a lot of researches going on the basis of the nutritional value of the product as well. So there were so many criteria put down to breed and to create different varieties of rices. And you can see by the time of Vagpada, even by the time of Charaka Samhita, already they could list what is best varieties being harvested in Sharat, in autumn, what is the best varieties to be harvested in winter. So you see different species being listed according to that. As an example, I am just going to the reference where he explains a huge number of Shali rices, different varieties of Shalis, which is harvested in winter, which is being explained in Ashtanga Hridaya. So it's a huge number of varieties explained. Let us chant this sutra. It is the first sutra in this chapter by which he opens the chapter called Annaswarupa Vijnaniya. Let us chant this word by word. Rakto Mahan Sakalama Turnaka Shakunahrita Saramukho Dirghashuko Lodhrashuka Sugandhika Pundra Pandu Pundarika Pramado Gaura Sarivau Kanchano Mahishashuka Dirghashuka Dushaka Kusumandaka Langala Lohavalagya Kardama Shida Bhiruka Patanga Tapaniyascha Yecha अन्ये शालय शुभा स्वादुपाकरसा स्निग्धा वृष्या बद्ध अल्पवर्चसा कषाय अनुरसा पथ्या लघवो मूत्रला हिमा. Let us repeat. रक्तो महान् सकलमा तूर्णक शकुनाहृत सारामुखो दीर्घशूक लोत्रशूक सुगंधिक पुण्ड्र पाण्डु पुण्डरीक प्रमदो गौरसारिवौ कांचनो महिषशूक दूषक कुसुमांडक लांगला लोहवालाख्या कर्दमा शीतभीरुका पतंगास्तपनीयाश्च ये च अन्ये शालयः शुभा स्वादुपाकरसा स्निग्धा वृष्या बद्ध अल्पवर्चसा कषाय अनुरसा पथ्या लघवो मूत्रला हिमा. Let us try to look at the meaning. So here it is very, very interesting that even the commentator of Charaka Samhita, Chakrapani Datta, says that it is impossible to say what are the varieties explained. Even he couldn't completely identify the varieties of these rice species which was explained in Charaka Samhita, and there is no wonder that I cannot exactly take a rice and tell you this is Rakta and this is Mahisha, this is Kalama and this is Turnaga. That means, to be very frank, we have lost the identity of the grains, the rice grains, what is being explained here. So this is an interesting area of the science. Now, how are you going to handle then this topic? The species what Wagpada is explaining here, if you don't know what he is speaking about, or if you don't know the species identity, how you are going to still use this information is an interesting area. Even most of the botanical books says more than a botanical specialist, a botanist, it is better to ask a good experienced farmer to identify the grain. Even a botanist will sweat or will really face trouble to identify the species of a grain if you give 5 grains to his hand. But an experienced farmer might know it. It may be interesting to know we use more than 10,000 rice species in India, only in India. So now we have understood how to differentiate Shali and Vrihi. And when you understand that, when I think about the grains which are produced in Kerala, it is a sad reality that we only have Vrihis here. We have lost the culture of harvesting in winter in Kerala. Most of the times, either rice is harvested in the Grishma, which is the summer, or in Sharath, which is the autumn. And even there are harvest festivals which is associated with these harvests also in Kerala. That means Kerala is not producing, or the majority of the Kerala, in my knowledge, is not producing shalis anymore. And naturally, it is not easy to identify then these species, because these were mostly used for winter itself. But still, the same grains could be used for Sharath or for autumn, but still technically we cannot call them as shalis. If it is the case, how we are again going to use this information for our day-to-day use? One probability which I will use is just looking at these names to understand what does these name mean in Sanskrit. And I am able to collect some data which is already, it's not my work, there is already some work done by some scholars or Sanskrit scholars who have done researches into the same topic. It is, when I tried to study this topic, this was already a burning topic on which many scholars who were agricultural scholars and also Sanskrit scholars and also Indologists worked on. And I found few references where they suggest what is the meaning of this word. For example, Rakta. For Ayurvedic people, this should be a very familiar word. It just means blood. So it suggests to a species which is red in color. So this Rakta is a shali which is red in color. Then there is a question whether it is the husk which is red or whether it is the grain inside which is red, which still remains. Let us see that later. Mahan just means large. Kalama means thick stemmed, and Sakalama means which has thick stem. Turnaka means which matures quickly, which has short lifespan. Shakunahrada, which means curved. Saramukha, I couldn't find any information. Dirgha Shuka means long-owned or which is long. Lothra Shuka, which is red-owned. So this Lothra is also a plant whose flower is red. So here specifically it says it is Shuka. It is the husk which is red. So this should be the rice or the inside which is red there. So that is Lodhra Shuka. And Sugandhika, which is fragrant. So when you speak about fragrant, even though it may not be the same species as Basmati, but Basmati is also something which is well known for its fragrance. So a shali which has fragrance was listed as Shubha. Eja anye shalaya Shubha. Shubha means good or auspicious or healthy. So it can suggest, even though it may not be the same species what Vagbhata spoke about, but it's still we can apply, we can think, we can infer that fragrance could suggest that a rice is good and healthy. So Sugandhika, fragrant. Pundra, we don't know. Pandu means pale. Pundarika, which means lotus or white colored. Pramada means pleasant. Gaura Sariva, which Gaura means again white and Sariva that it's not seen. Kanchana, again which means golden. To this name Kanchana, Kanchana means golden. It is interesting that if you go and search in the internet, you will find now the world, the scientific world or the botanic world is trying to develop a golden rice or a yellow rice which has some specific proteins and vitamins and specific nutritional ingredients in it. So it is maybe interesting that there was already kanchana, a golden or a kind of yellowish rice, which was considered shubha, which was considered good and auspicious. And mahishashuka, buffalo headed, or it speaks about the shape of the grain. And dushaka we don't know. Kusumandaga, kusumanda means, kusuma means flower, anda means egg, flower egg shaped, the shape. Langala we don't know. Lohavala means iron like, it speaks about the color. Kardama means sludge, which grows specifically in a very sludgy region. Shida Bhiruga, which specifically speaks, Shida means cold, Bhiru means fear. So certain species which cannot be cultivated in cold climatic conditions. Patanga literally means grasshopper, which might speak about a green species which has a grasshopper color. Tapaniya means bright. Yecha Anye Shalaya, and other species of rice are Shubha, are good. So we can see these words which was used to indicate certain specific species itself speak us, itself give us a lot of clues to look at the whole grains, rice varieties, and to find out which will be more beneficial, which will be more healthy. And also you can go and see that Yavaga, Hayana, etc. is being listed as bad varieties of rices, which produces certain imbalances of doshas. So in general, red rice which has large grains, which is quick matured, which has long awns, which has fragrance, which is pale white, yellow, even green varieties of grains, which has different shapes like buffalo head, flower egg, or so these different shapes, different colors, and Shita Bhiru, some species which doesn't grows in certain specific climatic conditions, etc., could be considered as good varieties of rices. You understand, it's like when we move from one chapter to the other chapter of Ashtanga Hridaya or any Ayurvedic classic, you will feel like you are moving from one science to another science. When we study Annaswarupa Vijnaniya in detail, you will feel like you are almost studying agriculture. He speaks so much. You have already heard now from me different criterias. You cannot just sit and study the chemistry of a substance and say whether this is good or bad. You need to look at the season in which a grain is produced. You need to see how many days the grain takes to mature. You need to see the color. You need to see the climatic conditions. So this is how Ayurveda looks at a substance. Again, one of the other reasons why he might have detailed Shali is to say and set criterias or tell you examples for further substances being explained. So for none of the other substances he has detailed like this while explaining further things. So all these criterias where something is cultivated, the color of the substance, the shape of the substance, the climatic condition of the substance, everything has to be taken into consideration for Ayurveda to understand whether something is good or bad, how this is going to be to have effects on the doshas, what gunas and karmas the substance is going to have. All these things are under the control of these factors. And then he says it is swadupaga rasa. It is sweet in vipaga and taste naturally. What is the taste of Hemanta? Hemanta is the season of, it is the most healthiest season. It is usually known as Sadharana Rudu. If anywhere, if you see a reference, Rute Sadharane. Sadharana means, in Sanskrit means, when three doshas are balanced. That is what is Sadharana Kala. So Hemanta is the only season when all three doshas are comparatively balanced, but having predominance of Kapha, because it is snowing in the snowing parts of the world. It is the winter. And Kaphavada is the nature of Hemanta. And naturally the rasa of Shali is sweet. And the Vipaga is also sweet. Whereas when you go to Vrihi, the Vipaga is Amla. And for Shali, for this type of rice, it is Hima. It is cold in potency. So Shali is cold in potency, whereas Vrihi is hot in potency, because it is produced in Sharat. Sharat is autumn. Here autumn is quite hot. It is the season, if you remember, in which Pitta Prakopa happens. Pitta gets imbalanced at this season. So naturally Vrihi tend to have Amla Vipaga, sour Vipaga and Ushna Virya, whereas the grains which is matured in winter tend to have sweet Vipaga and cold potency. And then it is Snigdha, it is oily. It is Vrishya, it is aphrodisiac. You can see even many animals having its breeding season in winter. Naturally, it is a season where the ojas and all dhadus, including Shukra dhadu, increases, and something which matures at this season can very much be Vrishya. And when we look at Rasayana, the rejuvenation, the best season to do rejuvenation is also Hemanta. That is the nature of the season itself. But there is one disadvantage for this Shalis. It is Baddha Alpavarchasa. It constipates, it obstructs the feces. Baddha Varchasa and Alpavarchasa, both. Baddha Varchasa means it obstructs the feces, means it constipates. And Alpa Varchasa, it reduces the quantity, which most of the times, most of the patients experience after coming here. So when you consume most of the rice varieties, especially those we use here, people tend to get constipated, which is also nature of some vrihis also. But in general, vrihis are srishta mutra purishascha. They produces mutra and purisha in excess. Okay, let us see. So this is the disadvantage of Shali, and it has a kashaya anurasa. It has astringent aftertaste, and it is pathya. You should remember this word pathya. Pathya means good for daily usage. So when you read Annaswarupa Vijnaniya or Drivadravya Vijnaniya, if you see pathya, this word, you can understand that this substance can be used regularly. Another interpretation for pathya is this is something which is beneficial for the srotas, something which maintains the health or the balance or the equilibrium of srotas, the channels, is also known as pathya. So these shali, these substances, these kinds of rices are good for regular usage, and they are very light to digest, and they are mutrala. They are diuretic. They produce a lot of urine, mutrala. So that is also in some ways a disadvantage of shali. So compared to other grains, shali being mutrala, people who use shali rice in excess can easily develop diabetes because it is mutrala. It increases kabha and also it pushes it towards the mutravaha srotas. So to have prameha, the consumption of too much of rice is not good. So baddha alpa varchasa, constipating and reducing the quantity of feces, and also diuretic. Of course, diuretic you can make advantage of this. You can use this property if you use it properly. So when you have less urine or when you have burning micturition, etc., shali will help you. But if you use it excessively, naturally it can produce diabetes also. So this is how you can use the information, which even though we are not directly able to understand what does it mean. And for your interest, I have just shown a slide where you find all types of these different types of shalis. You can see red varieties, you can see patanga, green varieties, you can see this lohavala, like black colored varieties, you can see very bright varieties, you can also see dull varieties. So you see all these kinds of varieties, and it should be important to tell you that this is with husk. This is also with husk, and other grains, this is also with husk. Other are dehusked forms of rices or paddies being shown there. So still, as I told, it is just to show you that, or you should also be knowing that there are so many varieties of rices. If you really go to a market where they really export or they really sell different species of rice, you will get almost mad because you see hundreds and hundreds of varieties of rices in these shops. So this is shalaya, different kinds of rices. And it is also important to note that there are rice species which are also bad, which the text explains, which you can go through. Because of the shortage of time, I'm not intending to just spend the whole time speaking about rice. So let us go to another important topic, which is, again, we are still in the rice, which is about Shashtika Vrihi. So Shashtika literally means 60, or something which is done with 60 days. So Shashtika Vrihi is a type of Vrihi. It's one among the Vrihi. It is not even scientific to use Shashtika Shali, it is Shashtika Vrihi, which matures within 60 days. So it is very interesting. A specific variety of rice is being named after the number of days in which the grain has to be harvested. It shows that is the characteristic feature which makes it special. So this is the interesting thing in Sanskrit nomenclature. For example, you know Guduji, I think I have told, me also have a nomenclature Amrita, which means nectar. It shows its rejuvenative property. In the same way, every nomenclature explains a very important aspect of that substance. So here Shashtika Vrihi. Shashtika Vrihi, the speciality of this species is that it matures within a very short time. 60 days, only 2 months, we can harvest this species. And let us look at this sutra from Ashtanga Hridaya, because this specific variety, fortunately, we are able to preserve this species, and this is still available, and this is highly medicinal. This is usually used only for medicinal purpose, even though it is something which should be pathya, but it is very expensive, so it's not usually used every day. But this is the rice species what we use to do Shashtika Pindasweda, to do this rice stamps or rice poultices, which is well known as Shashtika Pindasweda. This is the specific rice variety which is used for that. And let us see what is the speciality of this species. Let us chant together. Snigdho Grahi Laghu Swadu Tridoshagna Sthiro Hima Shashtiko Vrihishu Srestha Gaurascha Asita Gaurata Snigdho Grahi Laghu Swadu Tridoshagna Sthirohima Shashtiko Vrihishu Srestha Gaurascha Asita Gaurata. Let us chant that. Snigdho Grahi Laghu Swadu Tridoshagna Sthirohima Shashtiko Vrihishu Srestha Gauraschasita Gaurata. Yeah. Let us look what does that mean. So Shashtika, the sutra is speaking about Shashtika rice, Shashtika variety of the rice, and that is Snigdha, that is again oily, it is not dry, and it is again Grahi, it is again constipating, and Lakhu, it is light. There are some books which says Shashtika is heavy, but it can never be heavy, because when the time taken to mature something becomes short, the contact to the earth and contact to the water is also less. You should know that rice is a crop which has to stay in water throughout the period of its agriculture. So the contact to rice, to water and earth is something which gives all these properties to this grain. That's why I told this needs a lot of water management. And even now the cultivation of rice is so much connected to rain, and if the rain cheats, the whole rice agriculture is under trouble. So, and the time of contact between earth to water to this plant is short. Naturally it becomes less heavy and less cold. Of course it is again cold, so it is light, or it is lighter than other species, and it is swadu, it is definitely sweet, and it is tridoshagna. The speciality of this species is that it balances all three doshas, and it is specifically sthira. Sthira means it is stable, or it makes your tissues very stable. It stabilizes your tissues, and it is called impotency. So Shashtika rice is specifically light, and also it becomes grahi. The grahitva is also because of the short term. So if it stays longer in water, it will not become so grahi. Grahi is specifically a pharmacological action where a substance absorbs and takes away the water content from the body. This is how it becomes constipating. So as the time of contact between the crop to water is less, it has comparatively water absorbing tendency even after harvesting. That's how it becomes grahi. So these are the properties, specifically tridosha specifying grahi and also lakhu, light. These are, and sthira is definitely another very important property of Shashtika rice, by which being lakhu, it is easy to digest and it is easy to absorb, and it subsides three doshas, and it specifically is grahi. It reduces, when used externally, it will reduce swelling. When applied externally, when done pindasveda, this substance will again absorb swelling or the water content from the body, and it is sthira. Unlike other rices, usually there is a basic difference between godhuma, wheat, and rice. Godhuma is sthairyakrit, is sthira. It produces stability in the tissues, whereas there is a difference. The cooked rice or cooked wheat, if you take the difference, is that the other thing is more firm and the cooked rice is more sladhana, or more loose or more soft. So but this specific variety is more stabilizing. It makes the tissues more stable, and because of these reasons, it is vrihishu sreshtha. It is best among vrihis. Sreshtha means best or the superior most. So Shashtika rice is best among vrihis, vrihishu, among the vrihis or in vrihis, it is the best. And then he further says gaura cha asida gaurada. The white variety of Shashtika rice is better than the asita gaura, the dark variety of it. So that means Shashtika itself is a big group. There are different grains which are Shashtika vrihis, and among them the vrihi which is white in color is superior in quality compared to the dark. It is important also to tell that there is another reference from some other science which defines shali as red grains and vrihi, shali as white grains and vrihi as red grains. I repeat, I think from Vastu or some other science there is a reference which says shali are those rices when dehusked is white, and vrihi are those rices when dehusked is red. But this is the reference which denies this interpretation. Shashtika, which is a vrihi, has a white variety. So if vrihi is only something which is red grained, Shashtika cannot be a vrihi. So this reference denies that interpretation. So this is important to know. Hope I am not confusing you. I tell you again, there is another interpretation given for vrihi which says that vrihi are always red in color when dehusked. But this reference that Shashtika has a gaura, white variety, denies that interpretation that in Ayurveda the word vrihi is not standing for those grains which are red in color when dehusked, because this vrihi is white in color, directly told. Right? And also when you go and read the varieties under vrihi, you will see yellow, white, etc. being explained there. So that cannot be criteria for Ayurveda to differentiate between Shali and Vrihi. Okay, so this is about the Shashtika Vrihi. Let us go ahead. So we have finished two subgroups of Shali and Vrihi, and we are going for Trinadhanya, that is millet. I have already told Trina means grass and Dhanya means grains. So scientifically, if you go and read the definition of millet, they also say it's a group of grains which are produced by different types of grasses. So grass is the source. And let us see what does Vagbhada say about Trinadhanya. Let us read this sutra. Kangu, Kodrava, Nivara, Shyamakadi, Himam Laghu, Trinadhanyam, Pavanakrit, Leghanam, Kaphapittahrit. Kangu Kodravanivara, Shyamakadi Himam Laghu, Trinadhanyam Pavanakrit, Leghanam Kaphapittahrit. Kaphapittahrit. Repeat. Kangu Kodravanivara, Shyamakadi Himam Laghu, Trinadhanyam Pavanakrit, Leghanam Kaphapittahrit. Yeah, so he explains few varieties. Kangu is foxtail millet. Kodrava is kodo millet. Nivara is Bengal wild rice. Shyamaka is little millet. Adi means etc. Or Himam, cold, and Laghu, light. So he explains few of those which is available, which was available and which is still available in India. If you search these names under google.co.in, you can see the images of these millets. You will also see interesting recipes also, especially if you search specifically in .co.in. Whenever you make a search for any of Ayurvedic information, it is better to go for .co.in so that you find more material and more Sanskrit literatures and more informations from the internet. So you can see images and also a lot of information about these substances. Also, I should tell you that even if sometimes you search for Kangu, the Sanskrit word, .co.in, google.co.in should give you images and informations. Even there are a lot of sites which gives you information about Sanskrit names and topics also. So I am not detailing this. So these Trinadhanyam, these grass grains are Pavanakrit, produces Vada. Pavana means Vada and Krit means produces. And Leghanam. So the disadvantage of these grains is that these produces Pavana, Vata. These grains once you consume can produce gas. When you eat this, it can slightly produce gas. It's not so good for Vata and Vata related complaints, but otherwise Leghanam, It is a very important action. Scraping. What is scraping? Scraping of the adhesive or adhesed excessive kapha and medas. The excessive coating or the adhesions of fat or mucus or gelatinous substances into the inside or the lumen of the vessels of any organs will be scraped off by these things. So you should remember this word leghanam, which will be translated as scraping, is a very important pharmacological action where especially kapha meda, fat and phlegm or mucus, is excessively imbalanced and specifically creates coating or adhesions anywhere. Even it can be in sinuses, it can be in any cavities, it can be in any channel. When kapha or medas or fat is adhesed or coated or has created a coating, to scrape that off, to clean or to clear, you can use substances which are having leghana karma. Leghana is an action, it is a karma which is scraping. So like atherosclerosis, fatty changes, etc. You can use these substances. So even nowadays it is very well known for reducing even cholesterol in the body, and specifically kapha pitta hrit. It reduces or it destroys. Hrit means destroys. Kapha pitta. Kapha pitta, the liquid pitta, or kapha and pitta. So it is good for kapha pitta, but it is bad for vata. These grass grains. I am not very sure whether we can put oats into this category. It needs further analysis. Somehow oats is another grain where we have to put in any of these boxes, 5 boxes. To me, with properties and also with its botanical origin, it looks like, I am not very sure. You can try to study more about oats because it is maybe more used and more grown and cultivated in the West than here.